And good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us. Hello, I am Gene Curtis, Operations Manager of Cool Radio in York, and we have a very special event taking place tonight at the auditorium at York High School. We're very proud to have been invited by the York News Times to participate in the Fall Forum. We have both of the York mayoral candidates and 7 of the 9 city council candidates here, and we're going to ask them some questions and find out their thoughts on some of the big important issues happening in York this year for the upcoming election. Now I'm going to hand it over to, from the publisher of the York News Times, Carrie Colbert. Carrie, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for everyone joining us here at York High School, for those listening on Cool Radio, and for those of you joining us on Zoom. We welcome you here. Big thanks to York High School for hosting us. A few housekeeping issues, and then we will go over how the forum is going to be set up. You cannot see on the stage behind me, but all the candidates are spaced. You will see us wearing masks, following rules that York High School laid out to make for a very safe and good evening. The evening will start with introductions by each of the candidates. Names will be drawn at random throughout the evening for introductions, questions, and closing. Each answer will be given 2 minutes in time. We want to thank our timekeepers from Rural Radio Network helping us this evening monitor time. Matt Wagner is unable to be with us this evening. He reached out to me this weekend and he is ill, so we will work to set up a time with him, and we wish that he gets better soon. Thank you to all of you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to a great evening.
So I believe next we're going to draw to see who gets to do the first introduction. Would you like to do the honors, Carrie?
Yes, Gene. And for our candidates, you'll have a 2-minute introduction, whatever you would like to share with the voters of York.
All right, so going first will be
Clarence Hoffman. Please step up to the podium, Clarence, and tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're running for city council, and whatever else you would like to share.
For me, it's a do-over, and it's just where should I start? Anyway, York has had a tough year, and I'm sure that every other county place has had the same thing. But we got through it, and a little bit from Joe Fry helped a lot. But anyway, we're sitting better than most, and but we don't have a lot of. We've had a lot of people ask about the money we did get, and they want to spend it right away, and we're not that good yet, but we're lucky we got through the way we did. And part of the way that we did is the fact that we didn't have several big places filled with someone to help us. But what do I say? God bless America and York, Nebraska. Is that 2 minutes?
Perfect. Thank you, Clarence.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's Clarence Hoffman, candidate for city council. Next, an introduction, we'll go with Jerry Wilkinson. Please step up to the podium. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening. I am Jerry Wilkinson, and I'm the current owner and operator of JW's Catering here in York. Also a partner in Extreme Automotive, J&M Properties, and as of late, the sole operations managers and basically management of Stone Creek Events Center. I am married to Melanie Wilkinson, who is the managing editor of the York News Times, as well as a huge contributor in my business. I am the grandson of a World War II vet, the son of a Vietnam vet, so I do have a great respect for the USA and the freedom it stands for and the government process. Throughout my high school years, I was involved in many forms of leadership and government roles as president of my class, president of FFA, Boys State, et cetera, et cetera. I later became president of the Chamber of Commerce in our small town before moving to York 20 years ago. I remember when we drove into York and seeing the sign that said, "Come and grow with us," and we did just that. As far as why I'm running, I'm sure it's clear. It's because I have nothing else to do. But no, in all seriousness, I've always had an interest in doing so at some point, and because I have a strong sense of civic duty. However, it was the election of 2016 and the chaos that ensued and affected both me and my wife personally and in a professional way. I became very determined to do what I could to help fix the situation. As I was part of this team that circulated the petition, I talked to a lot of the residents and found out that many feel the same way as me, or were upset because they didn't know what to do about it, and some were just afraid to put their name on anything. I am running to represent those people and fulfill my promise to some of them that I said I would run. I consider myself to be open-minded, yet grounded, as well as educated in many different ways that I think I can make a difference through sound decisions. I look forward to learning as much as I can. I am only one vote, but I think the vote I will represent the hardworking people of York like me.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, Carrie, I'll let you do the honors on the next name.
Jared Sorgenfrye.
Thank you. My name is Jared Sorgenfrye. I live here in New York and been married to Bria Sorgenfrye for 11 years. We have 4 kids, Keaton, Jolie, Beckett, and Kenna. I want to thank the Cool Radio and high school for hosting this event and York News Times for making this video available for those who are interested. I feel this is an important election and really want to thank the people that are taking an interest in getting to know the candidates and what we represent. I think the question many people are asking is of candidates in general is, what do we believe? I'm someone who believes in family values and in community. I feel that government, businesses, and individuals can work together to solve problems, and that produces the best outcome. I believe that York will prosper in the future, and that we're set up well to have a nice community for a long time to come, but we are going to have to work at it. There are many challenges that we'll face, and it's important to ask the right questions when we're faced with those challenges. I'm not running for city council because I feel that I have all the answers, but I am prepared to ask the important and sometimes difficult questions and work with business leaders, residents, and members of the community to find solutions that benefit everybody. So look forward to the questions and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jared Sorgenfrye. Up next at the podium, one of our mayoral candidates, Barry Redford. Barry Redford, please step up to the podium and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I am Barry Redford and I'm currently serving as mayor of York. I've been in that position for a year and a half, and what a year and a half it's been. The last 9 months of being through the pandemic, of which we're not through yet, has made this a very interesting time. But I'm still very proud of all the things that we've gotten going and the things that are happening in York right now. I grew up in York. What happens in York matters a lot to me. I've worked in banking for 36 years, and I've dedicated a lot of my life to doing things in the York community and trying to give back to York. So what matters to me most is that I come to the table and I never feel like I have an axe to grind. I never look at one group more than another group. I try and bring people together for common ground, and I'd like to stay involved in this process for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Next up, we have Ron Noble, mayoral candidate as well. Ron.
Outstanding. It's good to see everybody tonight. I know you can't see me. I've got a mask on, and I do have a tie on. My daughter wanted to make sure that I did this. Running for mayor, I've been a city councilman for 4 terms, and it has been my honor and my pleasure to serve as your councilman. We've done a lot of great things in the last 16 years, but I kind of feel like I've run into a wall, and I just don't know that I have that much to offer as a councilman. I think as a mayor, I've got a vision and I've got a plan, and I believe there are things that we need to talk about and do as a community and get it done without just waiting around for the wheels to fall off the cart or for somebody to come and complain. I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant about what is going on in our community. We need to talk to people, we need to listen, and then we need to make, once again, a plan. And then we need to activate that plan. I think we've got a good council. I think we've got good candidates up here on the stage. I believe I can work with anyone. I've been involved with my family business for forever. We went from 3 people working there to, I believe we have 10 now. And that's something when you're dealing with automotive. It's very difficult, and you really have to earn your customers' trust. And I hope I've done that as a councilman, and I hope I can continue to do that as your mayor. Thank you.
Up next to the podium, Steve Postager.
I want to start off just thanking both Dean and Carrie for the invite here to host this. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Postier. I grew up here in York. Got a chance with a job offer to move back, working as a banker at Henderson State Bank. My wife and I own canine kennels, and we've got 3 kids here in the community. This is the community I grew up in. It's where I call home, and it's where we chose to raise our family and wanted to call home as well. I've been involved ever since moving back in New York in many different groups, activities, the Rotary Club. I'm on the board there, past president. I'm on the board of York County Development Corporation, the York County Health Coalition, the Library Foundation, the York Young Professionals, as well as other groups and organizations in this community. Spend a lot of my free time trying to do what I can to give back to those in this community that I like to call home. Recently, I was awarded the leadership award that the York News Times and YCDC organized for the 2020 award with that. Why I chose to get involved and run for city council. Been big, like I said, big believer in New York, and I've always wanted to help grow this community, whether it's new jobs, new businesses, expanding pay here in our community, helping to better people's lives in this town. And I feel serving as a city council member, I have an additional opportunity to do that and a way to give back and to continue growing York. Appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up, we have Karen Harris.
Hi, I'm Karen Harris. I've been born and raised in Nebraska. I have lived primarily here for 25 years. I lived in Grand Island, I lived in Lincoln, and I've done a lot of traveling around the world. It's interesting that every place I go, I am so eager to get back to Nebraska, and now particularly to get back to York, Nebraska, to the people, to the values, and to the way of life. I think I filed for city council because it's important to me and to my husband that York continues to be the kind of place that we want to live, work, and raise our families. I've never really talked through one of these before. Anyway, there's some things that I think are really key for anyone who's a public servant. The first is honesty, integrity, which translates into transparency ultimately to their constituency. The next one is commitment. You know, if you sign up for something, you really need to follow through. So that means attending the meetings, talking with your constituents, and being an eager and willing ear for them. I don't know, you know, the qualifications of everyone on this stage I think are pretty amazing. I read them all in the paper, and I didn't I wasn't sure you wanted to hear my list of boards or committees, but I think that I bring the qualities. I'm a good listener, I'm fair, and I'm eager to do something to ensure that York stays the wonderful place that it is. And I'm also eager that when I see things that need to change, that we work on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, up next to the podium, we have Vicky Northrop. Vicky, please approach the podium. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for hosting this event tonight and giving us this opportunity to introduce ourselves. My name is Vicky Northrop. I am a retired teacher who is now the director at Wessel's Living History Farm. I also am a substitute teacher and an adjunct professor for Concordia Online. Mick and I have 4 sons and 3 grandchildren, and 2 of our boys have moved back to York with our grandson. And when we had the opportunity for me to retire early and move back to be closer to our family here, we took that opportunity. We always knew after living here 16 years and moving away for employment purposes and then coming back, we would be back to York to retire. I watched my family always be involved in York, either in businesses, in community service, I had a great-grandfather that was a minister here. I've had members of every single generation of our family be involved in York, so it just seemed like the right thing to do when I wanted to be involved in the city council. I believe my experience at the school, I was on the school improvement team. I was on negotiations for 15 years. I was on school improvement. I've done grant writing. I know how to work in teams. I felt like working inside a budget was a big, strong bonus for me because as a teacher, we were given a budget and had to stick to it. And I felt having those abilities and that knowledge would make me a big candidate for York City Council. I would like to see the communication improved between members on the council, between the administration of the city and the department heads, everyone to really be able to communicate, come together and connect for what's best for York. I think sometimes things that have happened where not everyone knows exactly what's going on and what they need to do to help others. And I think if we could work together and be on the same page, it would be beneficial for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky. Diane Wolfe.
I'm Diane Wolfe, and I have previously served 12 years on the city council. You might remember that I am the one that filed the petition to recall Orville Stair. And I stand on that for my character and my values, that when we go into office, we take an oath. And we need to do our job, whether it's hard or easy. And I'm a Christian. I'm married to a police officer. I hold myself up to my standards so that nobody can look and say, she's not doing her job. I want to be able to hold my head up, and I'm not an outspoken person. I'd rather be quiet. I would rather turn away from debates or arguments. But when something is wrong, I am going to take a stand. And that's what I will do for you. I will stand up for the people of York, no matter what it costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. We will now move into the question phase of the forum. As many of you stated in your introductions, you are doing this for the people of York and the constituents. And it is from that where the themes and questions for this evening's forum were comprised. Jean, would you like to pull the first name?
First person coming to the stage will be Vicky Northrop. Vicky, please approach the podium and Carrie will draw your question.
And as Vicky approaches the podium, for those of you in the audience and listening, As you just saw, each person in question is drawn at random. No candidate will answer a question back to back. So if you see us put a name back in the bowl, that is why we have done that. And each candidate will have 3 questions, including a closing throughout the course of the evening. Vicky, do you feel the city's responses in the different phases of the pandemic were appropriate, adequate, and responsible?
Oh, we have multiple different things that we have done during this COVID pandemic in order to make things safe for others. And as a working member of our community, I do believe that York was very progressive in staying on top of what needed to be done. I was one of the lucky people that received the messages on Thursday morning from all the different departments that were able to meet and talk about the progress of their group of people, what things they were doing to be careful, keeping people in the know on requirements that we need to have from the Four Corners Health Department. And I truly appreciated the fact that we were kept in the loop all the time. I never felt like I didn't know what was going on. And so I do believe York did a great job of keeping all of the people in the community, the business owners, and anyone who was involved in working with and for York on top of what we needed to do to stay safe during this pandemic.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Vicki. Carrie, would you like to draw the next name?
Clarence Hoffman.
Thank you, Clarence. Here is your question. At the York News Times, we get a lot of questions about recycling. Right now, York doesn't have recycling services and there appears to be no easy solutions. Do you have any ideas about how to bring back recycling services to York?
The problem is there's not a market for them there right now. That's what's happened on several different things. We're able to take care of our rubber that is no good to us anymore. There's a place where that goes and it gets used again for different things. But the big problem is that there's nowhere to go with it. And we have one of our people here in York, he's hauling it away and it's costing him to do it. But he's doing it for the city and the people here. And thank God he's there. But I'm not sure what they're doing with it when he gets on the other end. Is that enough?
That'll work.
Thank you, Clarence.
All right, next to the podium, Stephen Postier.
Stephen, your question. While you are all running for your own reasons, how will you also work to listen to the varying views of York residents and work for the taxpayers?
I think as a city councilman, that is the job, is to listen to everybody's concerns, questions. I think the big thing as a council member that we need to make sure to put into place is to make it easy for the constituents and residents to approach the council with ideas, concerns, ways to better York. Sometimes whether it's having to stand up at a mic, is not always the most comfortable for everybody. So having to do that at the council, are there easy ways to reach out to the administration? Are there ways that we can better improve? So if somebody's wanting to start a business, how do they work with the city to do that? What permits need to be filed? What zoning issues need to be filed? I know recently the McLean beef deal, there was an issue with the zoning committee. Happened to go before the city council, and that was a confusing process. So I'd like to make some clearer ways for that to be addressed, so that way constituents can reach out to city council members, to the administration with those types of concerns.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I am up for name. Karen Harris.
Thank you, Karen. Here is your question. Nearly every week for many years, the Wonderline receives at least one question pertaining to bad smelling water in residents' homes. It's been said that the only way to stop this naturally occurring issue is to have a water treatment plant, which is very expensive. Do you think now is the time to start the process towards this expensive project?
Honestly, I don't know. I know that about the smelly water. I know the complaints that my husband used to get about smelly water. I think that with the work that's being done on the sewage treatment plant and the other water things, if we're ever going to do anything, it might be a time to at least look into it. But otherwise, I don't have the background to tell you off the top of my head. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Up next to the podium, Diane Wolfe, please. Thank you.
Diane, your question. With the city's finances currently stable, are there specific projects that you feel should be undertaken in the future?
At this time, I think we need to stay within our budget and keep things steady, look into things maybe for the future, but we have things that we need to pay for, such as police cruisers, fire department items, things that have been neglected in the past. They need to be updated. Some of our buildings, they could be some updates on there as well. So I think we just need to keep it level and not start anything new as yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Ron Mobile, please join us at the podium. And just a note to everyone on stage, it's kind of you to look over at Jean and I, but if you continue facing forward, I think that helps with the audio.
I just want to hear.
All right, Ronald, here is your question. In these trying times, what can elected city officials do to support local businesses?
Wow, kind of a no-brainer for me. My wife's the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, executive director. Shop at local businesses. That's number one. Shop there. Tell other people why you're going to local businesses. Show them what you bought at local businesses. If you can't do that and you need something, buy a gift certificate from that local business and cash it in later on. We've got to support our downtown and our local businesses as much as we can. I know I appreciate it when people come into my business, but really that's the easy answer, I think. Support your local business by going there and working with those folks. Most of the businesses in town, if you want something from them that they don't have, they'll try and figure out a way to get it for you. I've had success at numerous businesses downtown. That being said, that's about all I've got.
All right, thank you very much. Up next, Jared Sorgenfrye, please approach the podium for your question. Thank you.
Your question. In light of recent passages of special permits for a number of different types of industries and businesses, a number of regulations were created that those businesses have to follow in order to be allowed. How would you ensure that the stipulations of those ordinances and allowances are followed? Whose role is it to police special permit regulations?
Thank you for the question. I was somewhat involved with one of these issues in particular, and I was attending council meetings where one of the other permits was issued. I think the policing of the permits is important. I think the most important thing was that there were considerations given and that the businesses that were put in place do have some incentive to follow the rules. That being said, I'm not sure that the council went far enough in understanding the issue as a whole when this came before them. It was something that came up and sort of blindsided the community as a whole. And we were playing catch up to understand the issue from the beginning. I think there could have been much more consideration given to the type of business and some modeling done around the type of need that it serves in the community, as well as working with other communities that have already dealt with this issue. And more of that needs to happen. A proactive approach to understand the businesses that are coming in is necessary. Being reactive will solve the current problem for the short term, but it won't address the broader issues or the longer term. So I think it's important that when the council takes up these issues, they consider not only the specific issue in front of them, but also the impacts that it will have in the near and long term for the residents of York. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Redford, will you join us at the podium, please?
Just so you know that these questions, there are some questions that are repeated. So this is a question that we have asked already, interestingly enough, to your opponent in these trying times. What can elected city officials do to support local businesses?
Well, I think Ron really probably said most of the right things. You have to support your local businesses. You have to go to those. I think we have a great business community. I think other things we've done as a community that the council's gotten behind was the downtown redevelopment projects. And you've seen those happening downtown where owners have to put up a certain amount, like 25%, but you've seen facades and buildings, and there's projects going on right now. We also use some of our CBG money to do some COVID relief to businesses to help them out, and that was a good use of those dollars. So along with supporting them, we have to do whatever we can, whatever we can when we're looking at new rules that we're putting in place, new ordinances that go in place. We have to know how that affects them. But again, shop in York. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up to the podium, Jerry Wilkinson, please. Thank you.
Jerry, your question. A business is looking to open a location in York. You are asked to share with them what you think is the city's biggest attribute. What would you say? If elected to city council, how in your role do you support that attribute?
That's a good question, because basically we've seen a lot of businesses open here lately in York, and I do have to believe that the customer base would be one of the greatest attributes of York because of our location. We're the crossroads of Nebraska, the United States. We have Highway 81, Interstate 80 going right through here. Location, as I guess is the other one. And basically as a council, we have to make sure that location is attractive in laws and abilities and services to those businesses that want to open up. I think the hardest thing maybe is to actually get the people to understand what that all is, and they have to, the way they go about finding out that information, I think could be presented in a little different way that would help out as well.
Thank you very much.
Jared Sorgenfrye.
Welcome back to the podium, Jared. Here is your question this time around. Do you feel that the city's responses in the different phases of the pandemic were appropriate, adequate, responsible, etc.? What are your feelings?
I feel that the city did do a good job of helping to implement the response. There was a lot of confusion. There's still a fair amount of confusion, a lot of moving parts. It was a difficult thing for every level of government and every organization to deal with. What I saw here in York was community and government working together to solve problems. It wasn't at ends or at odds with each other. I also think that the residents of York have done a fantastic job of implementing the measures that have been asked of them. I see young people walking around all over this community wearing masks without complaint. It's amazing how well the young people take up things that they're asked to do. And it's a lot of the older generations that have a hard time with that. So I commend the younger people who have taken on the challenges that we've put in front of them. Business has been incredibly innovative at trying to deliver services and goods to customers while keeping them safe. And I think that that's the proper approach, is to let enterprise find solutions and for government to create the right incentives for those enterprises to produce the solutions. They're at the front lines, they're seeing what people need, and they're the most at risk, so they have the most skin in the game. Naturally, they're going to produce the right results. So I think everybody worked together well. It was an incredibly difficult situation, and I'm proud of how we responded. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Up next, Ron Odom.
You've been asked that question already.
Well, I'll do it again.
Ron, your question. If elected, how would you work to address increasing the amount of people moving into the city?
Repeat the question again.
If elected, how would you work to address increasing the amount of people moving into the city?
I think it's a good thing if more people want to move into our community. I think a lot of folks are missing out on a fantastic place to live in York, Nebraska. We've got a lot of amenities. We've got a lot of housing starts going up right now. I think we've got a lot of things to be proud of. I think we need to do a better job of marketing ourselves. We're kind of small town, and we have that small town feel where we don't like to brag about ourselves. We don't like to put out there the good things that we have going on. And I really think it's important that we do that. We need to tell people what we've got and why York is a fantastic place to live. But that being said, I don't want to lose the small town feel. It's nice to know the people that are going to the grocery store and you see them and you say hi. And it's nice to know the people that are in your church. And I think we need to save that if we can. But by the same token, we need to do a better job of marketing ourselves. I think that's one of the communication things that we've kind of let go by the wayside over the years. And that isn't something that's brand new. I just think a lot of times small town people don't like to talk about themselves. And I think we need to get over that and announce to the world what we've got going on in York, because it's pretty darn terrific.
Thank you, Ron. Diane Wolfe.
A business is looking to open a location in York. You are asked to share with them what you think the city's biggest attribute. What would you say if elected to city council? How in your role do you support that attribute?
The people is the city's biggest attribute. I think the people of York do an amazing job at making others feel welcome. We support our businesses here. Our churches do a fantastic job at reaching out to make sure they feel welcome. We have an amazing school system. We have parks. We have the swimming pool. We have our new ballpark, our sports. It's the people that put it all together. And that's what I would tell them.
Thank you very much. Up next to the podium, once again, Jerry Wilkinson, please. Thank you.
Jerry, your question. Do you support the national defund police movement?
No, absolutely not. There would be no reason to do that if you want the reason for government is to provide safety to the people that live in the country or in a town or in any community. If they want to do that, why don't they just fire themselves and move out of town as well if the government's going to do that? No, that would not be on my list of donors.
Thank you very much.
Barry Redford, will you please join us at the podium?
All right, Barry, here's your question. If elected, how would you work to address increasing the amount of people moving into the city?
I think that's what we've been addressing. I think when you look at the apartments that have been built, the new residential areas, the quality of the schools, all the quality of life things that we have, I don't think there's many towns of 8,000 that can compare to us. And this isn't from just the last years. This has been over the last decades and decades of all the things York has to offer. So I think, as Ron even said, we have to promote ourselves and we have to tell people that there's a place to live here. And then that will help us if you talk to businesses in this town, almost everybody needs more employees. So we have to keep working on housing. We have to sell people on the quality of life that York has. And I think if those people want to come and be part of this community, this is the kind of welcoming community that would invite them. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next to the podium, please, Vicky Northrop.
Vicky, if elected, how would you work to support city endeavors to clean up abandoned, dilapidated, and neglected properties?
Oh, that's a good question. If I were elected, the first thing I would do would be to find out what kind of programs are available for us to apply for. If there are grants we could apply for in order to go in and help the homeowners, maybe we could offer them some assistance in getting their properties cleaned up. I believe that we need to sometimes we have to teach people what to do and how to take care of what they have. Maybe they weren't raised with the knowledge that they need to have to take care of their property. And maybe they don't have the funds behind that. So if we as a community, as a city, would be able to apply for those kinds of funds, be able to apply for that kind of guidance, see what is out there that would help us help them. We would also, rather than alienate these people and make them feel bad about the way that things are in their home or their property, we would make them feel as part of the community and that we help them feel like they belong here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Next up is Karen Harris.
Karen, your question is this. The city has historically had great partnerships with a number of entities. What other partnerships do you feel would be beneficial toward economic development, law enforcement, and human resources, and etc.?
Wow. In addition to those we already have. Well, let's see. Okay. We have partnerships with, well, YCDC obviously has partnerships, and we write grants for various things, partnerships with other people. Okay. I think the various government agencies that I've been acquainted with and worked with, for most things that are an issue, if you look to see what it is you're trying to achieve, there are people and agencies that can give you a list of the groups that can help you the most with what it is you're trying to accomplish. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you because I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish today, right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next to the podium, Stephen Postier, please.
Stephen, your question. The city has historically had great partnerships with a number of entities. What other partnerships do you feel would be beneficial toward economic development, law enforcement, human resources, etc.?
In addition to the current relationships we have with all the different groups, I think expanding the relationships with YCDC, who plays a big part in this community, as well as reaching out to build better partnerships with the state. With the fact that we have the highway and the interstate system, I think there's something we can gain as a community by furthering that relationship. I also think locally, the York County Health Coalition is a big player. It's becoming a big player in the community of ways to help people in this community. And I think things like with the water department, being able to help those out through there, as the previous question had mentioned, asking about the dilapidated houses or lawn care, things like that might need some help. There's groups and organizations in this community that are there to help the citizens in our town. And I think furthering those partnerships, as well as the ones at the public schools, the college, SEC, all these different great groups we already have in our community. So I think growing those relationships and expanding those are a great way to keep moving this town forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up is Clarence Hoffman, please.
Thank you, Clarence. Here is your question. In light of recent passages of special permits for a number of different types of industries and businesses, a number of regulations were created that those businesses have to follow in order to be allowed. How would you ensure that the stipulations of those ordinances allowances are followed? Whose role is it to police special permit regulations?
That's an easy one, I guess. I'd lay it on the mayor. But anyway, that's not, I don't think we've seen too many problems with that. Big cities, you probably need it, and we've probably got a few in York that need it too, but it's usually they start on the bad foot and it gets worse. But I don't see a lot of that in New York. In fact, our city is clean compared to some bigger ones and some little ones, but it's we're not perfect, but we're not bad. And I think people watch that. Every now and then something will happen and it's not going to hurt anything, but it might smell bad or it might be in the way, and that's a problem. We have people that because of the business we're in, they'll drop old cars, they'll just be there and nothing on it, But anyway, it's we don't have I don't see a big problem in York, Nebraska. People are pretty good and upright here.
Thank you very much. Up to the podium, please, Diane Wolfe.
Diane, if elected, how would you work to address increasing the amount of people moving into the city?
Well, it has been answered before, but it is a good thing to have more people come in. We have housing being built now. We're on a good road to that. What we need more of is the jobs, though. We need to employ the people here to make the sales and the taxes, to keep it all in the community. Other than that, we do still want to keep it on a smaller level to keep the small town feel, as they have said, but we still want it to grow. And I think we can do that. And I think we should do that and welcome them.
Thank you very much.
Ron Noble.
While you're all running for your own reasons, how will you also work to listen to the varying views of York residents and work for the taxpayers?
Well, I don't think much has changed for me. The last 14 years, my door has always been open, and people used to always pick on me because I probably got the biggest door in town. Clarence used to have a big door, but he kind of left that place. So yeah, I talk to people all the time. I'm friendly, I'm easygoing. People love to come up to me and express their concerns. They like to tell me my failings. They like to tell me my successes, and that's good. I think it's wonderful that people in this community feel like their input matters, and it does matter to me. I'm always willing to listen, and I've always told people, I may not be right all the time. You may be able to change my mind. I'm flexible. But at the end of the day, my opinion matters, and my decision matters. And I think that you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and feel confident that you've made the right decision, even though some people may not agree with it. And that's what I would continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, up next to the podium, Jared Sorgenfrye.
Jared, in these trying times, what can elected officials do to support local businesses?
I think officials need to work with local businesses to create the right incentives for businesses to flourish. I would like to see a lot of incentive for entrepreneurs to come in to our community, feel comfortable starting businesses, and know that they'll be supported. I think there's a tremendous opportunity with the location of York to take advantage of the increase in commerce. The interstate intersection that is here connects to a lot of places. I think if we're innovative and work towards it, we can bring in a lot of new businesses. York and many other small rural communities have faced a challenge over many decades where farming represented a large part of the economy, and it supports fewer and fewer families over time. So it's necessary to incentivize innovation and the right kind of people to come in and start businesses and take advantage of the many resources that we have in New York. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Postier, please join us at the podium.
At the York News Times, we get a lot of questions about recycling. Right now, York does not have recycling services, and there appears to be no easy solutions. Do you have any ideas about how to bring back recycling services to York?
I wish it was an easy solution, but I think that it's going to take a community effort. As has been already kind of stated, it's a labor issue, it's a demand issue. I think kind of playing off some previous answers, entrepreneurism might be a solution to help with recycling. If there's demand for recycled products, even locally, I think we can create a local market to utilize that. In fact, one idea I'd already been toying with, and I reached out to the entrepreneurship program with the York Public Schools that they already have going on, maybe as a way to expand that into the future, into the high school. There's a company that builds basically machines that takes recycled plastic, pelletizes it, and you can learn to make products, kind of like the ESI Camp does with the middle school here in the community. Maybe there's a partnership that the city and the York Public Schools can do to help teach about recycling and what's recycling and the different types of plastic and glass and ways to use it. And at the same time, teaching kids to start their businesses, to grow businesses locally, as a way to both expand the recycling and solve some of those issues, as well as build on the entrepreneurism and trying to keep kids here in the community or coming back when they get old enough and want to start their own business. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky Northrop, please come back to the podium.
Vicky, same question to you. What happens when you pull random questions? At the York News Times, we get a lot of questions about recycling. Right now, York doesn't have recycling services, and there appears to be no easy solutions. Do you have any ideas about how to bring recycling services to York?
Well, when you asked that question, I thought that was I was thankful that you did, because I actually have been to Copchaw's and talked with them about possibly setting up recycling out at Wessels. And we had talked about getting involved with the high school and with the FFAs and different groups and trying to see if we couldn't work out some kind of a program. So it's along the same lines as Stephen's answer. We were talking about involving entrepreneurial programs and colleges, even if they were interested in working with us and helping us get these kinds of things going so that we could get a recycling program back in York. I know there's a need. We could get other service groups in York might be able to pitch in and help. There might be a place where we could all gather together and help each other. And that was our thought when we first started talking about it, when I went into Copchaw's and visited with them initially and found out what the cost would be, and that there was a man in the community who was taking the recycling out to help for us. So I think there's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ways. I think we need to continue looking rather than just assume there's no answer. It's expensive, we can't do anything right now. I think we need to continue working, and we need to have possibly a group of people who is interested in doing this, like we would be at our out at the farm, or other community people who would be interested in helping out with this, maybe forming a committee and seeing what we could do if we could work with the schools. I think it would be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Redford, will you please join us at the podium?
Your question is this: nearly every week for many years, the Wonderline receives at least one question pertaining to bad smelling water in residents' homes. It's been said that the only way to stop this naturally occurring issue is to have a water treatment plant, which is very expensive. Do you think now is the time to start the process toward that very expensive project?
No, I don't. We just, our water department guys are treating this. We just had a study done here recently within the last 6 months that said all of our things are in line, and that we do not need one. This was by an outside consulting group that we brought in just to look at this issue. We did leave room for one if ever necessary in the well field, but it is very expensive. For the most part, York has very good water. I'm always sympathetic to people when they get that smell, but we are trying to treat that, and they are trying to treat the wells now. So I think that's the way we have to go on this, as opposed to a multi-million-dollar project. Thank you.
Thank you. Name out here. Up next, we have Jerry Wilkinson. Please approach the podium.
Jerry, if elected, how would you work to support city endeavors to clean up abandoned, dilapidated, and neglected properties?
Pretty simple. You call the fire department, they need a place to practice, and no, I'm just kidding. Basically, it is pretty complicated in the situation we have in York, where there are so many properties throughout the city that are either run down, a lot of junk in the yards. I think one of the biggest things too is to actually maybe form a committee and find out the reasons why this is happening, what the city is actually could do, and then basically try to come in between and make an agreement there where there are penalties, but yet maybe some help available before that would ever, happen, that they would get penalized to clean up the situation, because it just brings down the whole community feel. It brings down your neighbor's property value if you don't take care of it. And then people that are renting to people that are letting them deteriorate, it doesn't do any good for your value as well. I think there's a lot of different levels of where this is actually happening, and maybe start at the top levels and work down. But it is definitely an issue we need to address, because it also, based on all these other questions of bringing people into York, it would definitely help if the first thing they didn't see is all these houses that are falling down and the people that are living in them, and all the junk that we have in the town. I think that would be a good start too, to help people, recruit people to move here.
Thank you.
Karen Harris.
Karen, your question is this: with the Four Corners risk rating increasing recently, what are your feelings on issuing a mask mandate for York?
I think that horse might already have left the barn, but I'm not sure it would fly, but Lincoln has one, and I think the adherence has been good. For my husband and I, we are in the age where we're in a risk category. And so for me, a mask mandate seems logical. I don't know, with the independent spirit of lots of the people who live in this neck of the woods, if it would be very well received. But I would like to see it if the risk factor continues to elevate.
Thank you very much. And our final question of this round robin sort of questioning goes to Clarence Hoffman. Hoffman, please approach the podium.
Clarence, if I've asked you this question already, please let me know. With the city's finances currently stable, are there specific projects that you feel should be undertaken in the future?
You know, that it's too bad that the money that they want to just grab it and spend it. But the reason that money's there is that we've had some employment people that we didn't have, and that's where some of that comes from. But if we jump in and just start spending it all over, and we already had gotten started when this question was made, but can we do some things? Yeah, there's some projects, but right now, I don't think we want to stick our foot in the mud too far, because we got the things we were talking about before being worked on now, and the auditorium and there's another building too. But anyway, that's not cheap. And they're already trying to push it a little further and get some more out of us. And right now, we shouldn't be blasé about it. We better pay attention.
Thank you. All right, well, now we're going to get to our closing question. We will once again draw names out of the fishbowl, but everyone will have the same question this time around. So,
And with this closing question, please include your closing remarks. So I will read the question and I can repeat as we go if you'd like to hear it. But as you answer the question, then please address the audience for your closing remarks for the evening. The closing question is, if budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city?
first up, Ron Vogel.
Thanks for that. What one amenity? I don't know. I have to go with my dad and say the streets. I'd love if we had unlimited funds, it would really be nice to do all the streets and not have a pothole and not have a dip and not have gravel flying all about and dust and dirt. I guess I would go with the streets. That's the easy answer for me. Closing remarks. Let's see, again. I don't know if any of you all have watched Cobra Kai on Netflix. I was taken by a scene where they put all the students into a cement truck, and he told them, you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving in that cement. If you stand still, you're going to get stuck, and you got to keep moving. And I kind of feel like York's starting to bog down and get stuck. We're missing a lot of employees in key positions, and that's a problem. From someone in business, if you don't have the right people, you're not going to get things done, and your employees aren't going to be the best they can be. And I don't care what department that's in. We need to have department heads. We need to have qualified people. Our employees need to live in our community. Our employees need to be part of our community. It's very important that we feel like our people in our administration can relate to us, that they pay the same thing we pay, whether it's taxes, a water bill, or a sewer bill. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. You need to be part of our community if you want to have a department head type job in York, Nebraska. And we need to get good people in there. I don't know what's going on and why we keep losing employees. Just a week ago, I heard we lost our technician down at the maintenance building. So that's another position that we need to fill. In this time of high unemployment, you would think we should be able to find a qualified applicant to fill all of those positions. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to vote for Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Next up is Steve Postier. As Steve approaches the podium, I will repeat the question in case we have people joining us that didn't hear it the first time. If budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city? If you can share your answer and closing remarks, please.
Sure. Thank you. For me, I would love to see a completed bike path and sidewalk ADA approved sidewalk system, trail system throughout the community. That's something that's been in the works for years, from my understanding. There's been plans designed for it. I live over on South Grant by Lichty's, between Lichty's and Walgreens, and we see kids walking on that road all the time. I see kids and people in wheelchairs riding on the side of the shoulder out on the bypass. There's no reason we shouldn't have a completed system throughout our community to connect the roads, the schools, the parks, the pool, the ball field, the interstate, businesses into town. We've got a 1.5 mile trail now. A lot of the sidewalks we currently have, there's issues with them. There's broken cracks. I think that's something that very easily could be addressed. So people in wheelchairs, kids on bikes riding to school, that they're safe, that they're able to get around our town, and just so families with kids can go out and send their kids down to the bike path and have a fun evening in the park without worrying about riding on the road or walking on the streets where they might get hit. So if we had unlimited funds, I'd love, and add a little caveat, I would love to add it as a solar panels. There's actually really cool technology called solar roadways that is replacing pavement with solar panels. I think that'd be a cool partnership with NPPD that would generate energy and electricity and some savings on top of that back to the city. So really big expense. I think that'd be a second level of be some fun to complete. As far as closing remarks, I just want to thank again everybody that did vote for me the first time around. Like I said, I really appreciate being a part of this community and working already to help it grow. I want to continue that going forward into the future. This is where my family is going to be calling home. This is where I'm going to be raising my kids, and I want this to be the best community it can be. One final thing I do want to mention is, I forgot to mention my intro, but as a banker, one of my weird quirks is I actually like to read the city's audit and budget, even though I'm not physically on the city council yet. I've been doing that for years, asking questions, trying to figure out why expenses are the way they are. I look at that and analyze that, and I plan to continue doing that and being able to make changes officially as a city council member if I get to vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Up next to the podium, Karen Harris, please.
And again, in closing, if budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city, along with your closing remarks, please?
I think the amenity I'd like to see us expand are our recreational areas. I know the streets need to be resurfaced, many of them, and I know other things need to be done. I think if we fill the positions that we need to have filled, and we had parks and recreation, or not parks and recreation, but anyway, if all the positions were filled, it's more likely that some of these things would already have been done. But with the new playground being built to meet special needs, that will do some of it. but the maintenance and some of the equipment at the other parks is not up to par. And I think I would like to see more added out at the ball field, more added at Minx Park, around the swimming pool, because we already have things that draw people in. And if we could offer them more while they're here, I think that would be a real benefit. In closing remarks, this has been a very interesting experience running for office. And I appreciate the opportunity. I think I've enjoyed listening to all the candidates on the stage with me, and I really don't think you could go wrong with any of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jared Sorgenfrye. Jared, if budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city? In your closing remarks, please.
I think some of the previous suggestions are good. One that hasn't been mentioned, I think would benefit many families here in New York, is a good access to public transportation. There is a lot of resource out by the interstate, and I think a way to get people out there to access some of those resources, jobs, shopping, would be a huge benefit. Many of the people in the community who struggle, that's one of the issues that they really struggle with is transportation, getting to and from where they need to go, whether it be doctor's appointments, shopping, or other items. I also like the suggestion of trails and parks being more accessible. I think any time you can increase people's ability to transport and to get around town without using vehicles, it's going to benefit the environment and the people in general. I think a healthy community that moves and exercises is good in so many ways for the long term of our community. I appreciate the questions tonight. There's been a lot of good questions, and it does highlight that we do have challenges as a community. And we've seen challenges this year that many of us couldn't have imagined. And I think it's encouraging that York continues to lift each other up. There are places that are literally tearing themselves apart over issues. We continue to support each other. And when I see buildings that are boarded up downtown, it's because they're remodeling. It's not because they're burning and causing destruction. And we've improved during a difficult year. We're a better community than we were at the start of the year. And I think there's something really powerful to be said about that. I'm not bringing any answers to the council. I am bringing questions, and I think that incentives, I'm a person who believes strongly in incentives, and incentives matter. My incentives are my family. My kids represent the third generation that will grow up here in New York. And I hope that for selfish reasons, so that my grandkids are close by, that there's a fourth generation here too. I also want to take an opportunity to thank everybody who supported me and encouraged me. And I hope everybody gets out and votes this November. It's an incredibly important time. And I thank everybody for their time.
Thank you very much. Up next to the podium, please, Vicky Northrop.
In closing, Vicky, if budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city?
Well, I thought hard about this while I was sitting over there, and I like all the other ideas that everyone suggested. But I think what I would like to do is to pay off the water treatment plant so that that burden would be lifted from our taxpayers and our community, and they wouldn't have to have such high water bills. I think that would be a benefit for the people in our community, and it would free up some of their income during the month to be able to support our businesses. And I think that would be a positive thing. In closing, I just want to say that dwelling on past mistakes rather than learning from them and working together to fix the situation prohibits us from moving forward. A continued focus on growth while maintaining expectations within a budget that is fair and reasonable for York taxpayers to bear should be a priority. Above all, I believe the voters of York should have an informed voice and public input in decisions that involve the city of York and spending and their taxes. And if elected, I will work hard every day to continue to strengthen and grow our community. I will make the commitment to read and learn the city's comprehensive plan, and I will practice integrity, consistency, and accountability. If you share the same vision for York's future, please vote for me for York City Council. Thank you for all of you who voted for me in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Up next is Clarence Hoffman. Clarence, if budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city? And your closing remarks, please.
Blackburn Bridge. Over the years, as a child, I was in water, but I was going to drown one time. And I forgot that that bridge was longer, the hole would be wider, it would be spread out. There might be a farmer or two that would go for that, but they might get an inch or two, or we'll get a foot or two. And if we can get that, that would be a real problem, or solved. But that's not going to happen. That's a year or two process. They keep talking about it, but it hasn't been done. But anyway, thank you. Can I be? I've got some people waiting for me. May I go? Okay, thanks.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Up next to the podium, please, Diane Wolfe.
I would have to say the fire department. I know my husband might disagree, he might like the police department, but I think the fire department has the most needs at this time. It's very expensive to build a new building and keep up the big trucks that they need and all the equipment. And I have gone on tours and I've seen what they do, where they live, and it really does need something to be done with. As far as closing remarks, I just want to say thank you to everyone that is here and is listening, whether it's via Zoom or the radio, and because it shows that you are trying to make an informed decision on how to vote. And that's what really counts, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Diane. Jerry Wilkinson. If budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city? And your closing remarks, please.
Well, I do have to reiterate to Diane's point, as I did in Gilligan's Times comments that I received back, responded to, is fire department is pretty high on my priority list as far as needing improvements and maybe just a whole brand new. If money wasn't an issue, let's just build a whole brand new one and have a place for the cop cars and everything like that too, so they're not sitting outside all night and things like that. I have also went down there and talked to the fire department and was shocked to find out their living conditions and that there was absolutely no upgrades, even in my lifetime, in that upstairs. It's like walking in 1969 and the paneling on the walls and the curtains and everything like that. So I do think that's definitely something we need to address in the near future, as and probably should have been done a long time ago. But other things, you know, come in the way. But as the fire department and the police department obviously get closer, some of the guys are getting older towards retirement. Newer, younger people that want to be in that profession aren't as available as they used to be. There's going to be some recruiting problems. I know if you were in, you're going to have to compete with maybe Creech or Beatrice or whatever for the same people. When probably Lincoln's got a better facility and probably a little higher pay. What's York got to bring a firefighter to work here and live here and raise a family here, and then also, you know, for their spouse or whatever to work as well. So I guess in my closing statements, thank you to the radio station and the York News Times for putting on this event so that people are more informed about what they're voting for. I think that's the highest priority we need in this election versus others that have happened. You need to know what you're voting for and vote, period. If elected, I don't have all the answers and do have a lot of opinions, but I do want to learn as much as I possibly can about the city and the process that I don't already know. Being married to the government reporter, I do hear a lot of things about the government and how it works, and whether I want to or not, but it's all good. And so she does keep me informed on a lot of things as well. So I want to learn more about what is actually happening. I think that the biggest thing that we've dealt with the last 4 years in particular that I've really paid attention to is a lack of transparency. You, the voters, you, the taxpayers, do not know why the numbers, read the numbers due in the paper. They say what the number is, but don't give a clear explanation of where it came from and what actually produced it and where we're going from here. I think that needs to be a #1 factor, and find out and trace that money and where it's going. I agree with Ron wholeheartedly that it's very disturbing that a lot of department heads, including when I was down visiting the fire department, there hasn't been a fire chief yet. And, you know, and when we're talking about budget issues, then we're talking about balanced budgets, but we've got all these people that aren't being paid in that budget as well. So I think that's another thing that's got to be examined a little more closely, and people need to know more about it. I will work as hard as I can to learn as fast as I can and try to listen to you and address your concerns as I have. I'm very available. Everybody knows where I'm at usually, and we'll take the time to hear your concerns and then research the subject, and not afraid to bring it up. Appreciate your vote. See you on November. Get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Barry Redford, please come to the podium.
Barry, if the budget was not an issue and the city could spend whatever it wanted, what one amenity would you like to add to the city? In your closing remarks, please.
Well, I think obviously all those are great ideas, and I would throw out one other one, which would be to have, we just put money in this year's budget to do a flood study, because a lot of York's been adversely affected by the new flood maps. This study is going to tell us it's not going to solve all our problems, it's going to tell us what we can do to try and bring a lot of properties back out of the floodplain. And I think if I had all the money it's going to take to do that, that's what I'd do, because there's a lot of people paying a lot of flood insurance that never had to pay it before. There's property values going down, and we have an issue. So we need to get into that whole subject, and I think that's what I would pick. I would just say a couple of things in regard to, we do have some positions open. There's no question that all of those salaries are in the budget, and so some of that money's gone into reserves, which is a good thing. We've had 2 director of public works in the last year and a half that I've been the mayor, and we interviewed not too long ago, and that position is still being looked to fill. It's not as easy as you think. We haven't filled the fire chief position, mostly because right after that position was kind of done, we went into the pandemic. And to be honest, the fire department's been getting along really well, but that's going to have to be looked at and resolved here over the next months. All I'm going to say is that I will work as hard as I can every day to do what's best for York. And no matter how this election comes out, we all need to work together for making York the great place that it is. Thank you for doing this tonight.
Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you for the wonderful partnership with Jean and the team at Cool Radio. Thank you most importantly to the candidates tonight. What a great process this was, and thank you all for sharing your thoughts and views. We look forward to hearing your feedback, and as repeated, go vote. Have a nice evening.